Andor audience demand now near Mandalorian levels according to a study. Yeah, not believing it. I didn't believe it from the second, and I read down to its data, and I'm going to show you that data and why they're being misleading. But first, let's have a look at what they wrote a few weeks ago. Andor's audience demand is lowest of all Star Wars shows, study reveals. Now, this was accompanied by a little graph that was tweeted out by one of the people from the analytics company. And this shows Mando up here in the top two, Obi-Wan and Boba Fett the next two, and Andor is the bottom line. This graph has subsequently been deleted with the idea that, sorry, we didn't have all the data yet. So now apparently with all the data, we find out Andor audience demand is now near Mandalorian levels. Well, this is what I call Mandalorian levels. If you're not getting up to here, then you can't claim to be Mandalorian levels, unless there's something else dodgy going on. Now, this article does say, it quotes data and says the demand is now 34.1 times the demand for the average TV show, with The Mandalorian following closely behind at 34. So at first thought, I thought, hang on a second, that doesn't make any sense. You cannot tell me Andor is watched at more than Mando, unless there's something else going on. Why is the audience growing? They're trying to justify why audience demand is growing. And I'm going to show you how manipulative they are with that data. So here we have the TV shows versus average demand. So they, whatever it is, they average it out. And then so you can see Game of Thrones is watched a lot. Stranger Things is blue, and I'll explain that in a second. And you can see these are the numbers. So we have The Simpsons at 55. So just keeping that in mind, The Simpsons are at 55. And now we come down to the digital only or digital originals. Stranger Things is topping the digital originals. Lord of the Rings is 43.4. Now you just remember, The Simpsons were at 55.5. There's more people watching The Simpsons than there are watching Lord of the Rings. But as we go down, we see Andor and Mando together. Andor at 34.1, which is what the article quoted, and Mando at 34. Now, what this actually means is that as many people are watching Mandalorian right now, this very second, which is a 2- and 3-year-old series, as they are watching a brand new series. That means, in comparison, people aren't interested in the brand new series. They're equally interested in a 2- and 3-year-old series versus a brand new series. That is an absolute disaster for a brand new series. But then we come to some more information to compare it to. Mandalorian tops the analytics for the 5th week. Mandalorian back at number 1. Andor is nowhere near getting up to this level. So to imply that the audience is reaching Mandalorian levels is misinformation. It's technically correct, but it's implying something that you think it means as popular as Mando was when Mando was out, and that's not actually what they're saying. They are trying to imply that, but they're not giving the whole truth. Now here we come to the Andor page, the analytics page. We've just seen this data here. It's a little bit different. Now this is the one that's really intriguing. How fast is demand for Andor growing? Change in demand, plus 50%. And you're going to be thinking, oh my God, people are watching this after all. What are you talking about? On a rolling 30-day average basis, we compare TV demand in the US for Andor to the preceding 30 days. That's the key, preceding 30 days. Demand has increased by 50.7%. Now we see the 60 days. So they have just told you half of this chart versus the other half of the chart. They've told you that up here. So what they're saying is that this second half of the chart here, the average is 50% higher than this first half of the chart. But this first half of the chart includes a period of time when Andor wasn't even streaming because it hadn't been released yet. So to then turn around and say, oh yes, but there was a 50% increase in demand, well, it's kind of being disingenuous because you're including a time when Mando wasn't even released. If you did it on a week-by-week basis, then you could tell me demand has gone up, demand has gone down, and so on. Because I'm looking at from here, we are talking from the 10th of October, demand has gone down. There's been a decline, but the way you present it, you give the impression it's gone up. The way this article presents the headline gives the impression it's gone up, but it's both misleading. It's deliberately misleading. Now we can check on the Mandalorian chart versus Andor on Google Trends. So what this was showing, a lack of interest. Do we actually see that? Yeah, we see a lack of interest shown here in Google Trends, and we actually start to see an increase in Mandalorian. So as Andor is going down, Mando is going up. Now let's compare this to the height of the Mandalorian. Are we getting Mandalorian levels of interest in Andor in comparison to when the Mandalorian first came out, season 1 and 2? And this chart shows us absolutely not. Absolutely not. In other words, this article is being deliberately disingenuous and slightly misleading to try and provide you an element of social proof how good this show is, therefore you should watch it. When the reality is, the data shows people are tuning out, people are losing interest, and people are gaining more interest in The Mandalorian than Andor. And that's all I have for this. Just wanted to correct the misleading info that was being put out to try and give the impression that interest in this was skyrocketing when that is just not the case. And let me know what you think in the comments below.